Hello everyone, welcome and good evening to you all. Welcome back to Twilight and welcome to Season 2, here with Light Speed Racing. It's good to be back. Apologies for missing out last round. My computer decided that it was not going to function as a computer anymore. So we're luckily back on the road, a little bit of a technical hiccup, but we are back in with things and we've got plenty to discuss tonight. So of course we come to the penultimate round. We do have a little bit of a catch up in terms of our standings and in terms of our results. To reflect on the previous round, we have quite the showing coming out of a few of our drivers. So Daniel Moffat was the one to crown themselves winner in the Pro Series. The Pro-Am Series went to Robert Everett, and that's it's going to be Craig Starkey doing very well, saying P4. Adam Rios, Richard Cook, going to be third and second. Just wanted to give a special shout to Craig, because he's been doing a really good job, and is in fact the admin overseeing this whole thing, so massive love to him in particular. Amateur, say we go through, that was qualifying, but then we go through to the race. Looks like we have, say, Scott Cameron and a little bit of a bug with the time. So in fact it was Craig Starkey, third on track and first in race, so my apologies for the miscount. Was a little bit of a bug with SimGrid's display. Daniel Moffat takes the win in the Pro Division and Scott Cameron in the Amateur. Now we move on to tonight, and tonight we are in Bathurst, not just for a standard round either. We are here for an extra long round, one of the two rounds that has been extended to 90 minutes up from 60, because of course it is Mount Panorama. It is that beautiful track, the iconic top section at the top of the hill, and the treacherous climb up that mountain before surging back down to the chicane for turns 21 and 22, and then two 90-degree left-handers to signify the end of the lap. Of course, we'll get a chance to go in real time with some of our drivers, but as a reminder, 30 minutes for practice, which we are coming to the end of now. The server has been live for 24 minutes, and we'll have a quick check-in on a few of our drivers as we get into the action itself. Then we have a 20-minute qualifying session, blue flag rules apply, standard racing etiquette to be seen, and then a 90-minute race. So the pit window opens 10 minutes before and 10 minutes after, or say 10 minutes after the start and 10 minutes before the end of the race, and it is for fuel and tyres. Not just fuel only like our 60-minute races, no. It is 90 minutes. So hopefully you are looking forward to this just as much as I am. And it's good to see everyone in the chat popping their heads by. So this one's a little bit of a longer one, folks, a little bit of a slower burn, and we're gonna jump into the track here. It is early morning. It is 4:24 a.m. local track time here at Mount Panorama, and this is Lightspeed Racing's Twilight Cup. Let's jump in and let's see who is gonna be the one we keep an eye on. Looks like games have a little bit of display issue. There we go. And now, let's take a look. So I've got a few drivers that I want to jump on with. We've got Claudio Zaza, who are jumping aboard with the Helicam, and you can barely see with these current conditions. It's just so dark out there tonight. So these drivers have really got a difficult challenge ahead of them. So we jump aboard with sort of the bonnet cam of Claudio Zaza, one of the top drivers in their respective divisions. So currently leading in terms of practice time here for the pro class. And you can see just how hard they're having to concentrate as they are rocketing down and really pushing that car to its absolute limits. And also with a very narrow cone of vision, it's quite difficult to make out really anything, especially your peripheral. Drivers got to be so careful here as we get Zaza out across and through. It is going to be a 202.377, and it is going to be the best time here in practice Now, this isn't fully indicative. Practice only tells half the story. As we jump aboard with Richard Cook, the only driver apart from Priadko, who joined us very recently, one of two drivers in the Mercedes AMG GT3. Bit of a beast, this thing. So it really is a little bit of a weapon as far as on-track handling goes. Very good in the straights, very good in the mid-corner, but it's also a little bit prone sometimes to getting the tail out. The sort of Mercedes AMGs do have a bit of a propensity for that, whether it's your SLSs, your SLs, and now your Mercedes AMG GTs. It is a very tail-happy car. Nick Regazzoni now in the McLaren 720S GT3 as he's coming up to the top tangly. Sort of very difficult to navigate in the day with full vision. So you get to the night and it is a real challenge in and of itself. You can see just a sense of the speed here. See, we just switch over to our standard POV. You can see the kind of speeds that they're trying to hit. So 265, 270, 275, nearly 300 kilometers an hour. These things are designed to top out right at the end of their gearboxes. 6-speed sequential straight cut gears. You hear the whine of the cogs as they're pushing through. And this is going to be the final couple of minutes here in free practice before we jump ourselves into the session, into quali good and proper. And it's a few drivers who are going to try and feel out the situation. So the track is looking green and very cold. So maybe there's a little bit of grass dust which could get picked up on the tyres. Could get a little bit of unsettledness in the car. And these drivers are going to have to think on their feet. Because even if those track conditions are stable, it's still very cold. They're going to have to put in a bit more work to get those compounds heated up. But as you see Regazzoni in the background, this is your current grid. So best sector times is going to go to Zaza for the sector 2 and 3 with the overall best of 202.377. You got the first sector being crowned by Daniel Moffat, the McLaren in a sea of 296 GT3s with Starkey and Anderson P3 and P4, Regazzoni P5, Krasnov P6, and Paul Sims, Robert Homer, Richard Cook, Adam Rios, making up the rest of your top 10. And of course you can see the rest of the times on the board. Everett, Priadko and Dismaquet, only drivers yet to set a free practice time, but free practice is about to come to an end. So let's see if anyone's going to throw a little bit of a Hail Mary. Krasnov in the Porsche. Final couple of corners tonight. And the final couple of seconds here in free practice. Krasnov, though, is going to really send it to the top of the boards with a very strong 202.705. Free practice is officially over, folks. Now, Claudio Zaza's just come across the line and really hit a scorcher with a 1.957 final time. Of course, he's going to head back into the pits now. But yeah, Regazzoni, last drivers, couple of them left on track still. We've got Benjamin Alexei. Best time of 206.812 in the amateur class with the number 77. Let's see if he can get any improvements. So far, he's a couple tenths down on his delta, but it looks to be all in the third sector. Let's see what he can do here. Coming to Mount Panorama's most famous section. And now the drivers are going to be looking at any real opportunity they can get to find themselves some time, find themselves a little bit of balance with their cars, but alas, that is not the time. Now is not the time, because now is where we get our drivers pushing to get in qualifying and get out ASAP. A little bit ghosting through other cars there, but a little bit of interesting POV, shall we say. Looks like Paul Sims is going to be first out on the track, along with Daniel Moffat, Claudio Zaza, and Brian Anderson in the 296. We'll jump on board with Zaza because they have been one to really put through the pace and show us what they can do. And of course, let's see. Let us know your predictions as well. Who you think is going to be coming out on top here in the quali session, because all eyes are on these top flight runners. So of course the Pro Division is going to have some absolute scorchers of times. We saw that with Zaza just at the end of practice, and we've seen that in prior qualies. But my interest is more in the Pro-Am and Amateur, because that's where you do see some real wild cards. And I think we have seen a little bit of placement adjustment also, as I'm noticing a couple drivers who were Amateur or Pro-Am last time being moved up a notch. So something to consider. Down for Conrad. We're about to start ourselves into the lap here, and we'll stick it tight to Claudio Zaza as we begin the first lap. 5 in the morning local time, Bathurst Mount Panorama. And let's hop on board, because we'll see straight from the driver's perspective what a hot lap at 5 AM here in Australia is going to be like. And let's see what he can do. Immediately, really pushing it hard on the pace, down on the brakes, really tries to keep it tight to the apex, but flushes it out wide, carries as much speed as they can, up the mountain straight. Now they're going to begin the ascent up the track, and they're going to be, of course, using that knowledge they gained in free practice to really find their feet, find their pace. They've just got to do what they've done a couple of laps before, into quarry. Now, banking to the right side, you've got to make sure you keep it nice and gripped up here. And so as we come up, see this sort of double apex here, the cutting, named for how close you cut it to the apex and to the walls here. This almost feels like a street circuit in some ways, because those walls do not grant you any mercy. They are ruthless, and once you get yourself into trouble, there is no coming out, at least not without picking up a few in other cars. Down into the second sector, we're coming into Skyline and into the S's now. Let's see, how can Claudio Zaza keep the pace? Heavy on the curbs, jumps it across, but he keeps the speed down into Dipper. Very nicely done there. Forest's Elbow next up. Tight left-hander down the hill. And, oh, that is rough looking for Claudio Zaza. They are straight in the wall. They're going to have to get out there fast. That is jumping them straight into the pit wall. And that is a very painful circumstance to be in. That has got to hurt there, because now that leaves a couple of drivers. So that's Daniel Moffat, who we're going to jump on board with here. So coming down Conrad. Oh, that looked like such a good lap too for Zaza. That is really tough to see. But here we are, Daniel Moffat, next driver, second on track, down through the chase, into Murray's corner to finish off the lap, corner 23. And let's see what the first times, what the incumbent times are going to be from some of these drivers. First off, Daniel Moffat. It's going to be looking good, and it's going to be a 202.625. Paul Sims, an entire second behind. You've got Brian Anderson, 7/10, goes second fastest. Richard Cook, 1.6 seconds. Starkey going to be coming down, was in that Ferrari as well. Was a few more drivers going to be coming through just ahead. You've got Benjamin Alexei, 5.8 seconds, going fifth fastest. Mishin going to be 4.5. Craig Starkey now going to be third fastest, 1.1 seconds behind. Robert Homer is going to be sort of pulling in, realizing they haven't really got the lap that they wanted, so they're going to be yielding, staying out of the way of other cars as they come across the line now. Few more to go, crew, and you've got some of them just finishing their laps now, like James Payton coming across the line here, as a few more are going to be making those initial pushes. See through here. Peyton looks to be on good form and is on good form. Second in class, it's 1.2 seconds, and they are net P2, overall P5. Very good showing there from the Audi. Only Audi on track, in fact, so that has got to stand for something. Dismukes not setting a time, and then, of course, we have Claudio Zaza, who has gone back in after their mishap in the final few corners in Forest's Elbow. They've got to keep their wits about them if they want any chance of getting that pole position. But here we are. So once aboard again with Claudio Zaza. Let's see if they can get another run this time. Let's see if they can get it good. And if they can get themselves a good starting position. So right now, eyes on this Ferrari. You've got a few more drivers who are out on track, and everyone is looking around for any opportunities to get themselves into prime contention. You see, these guys are just past Priadco here, coming up the hill and into the cutting. And a few more drivers are going to be heading through, but no meaningful time improvements yet, as there is a brief yellow flag, and I believe that is... Who's that? Was that Mishin? The Mishin back in the pits. They must have stopped on the inside curb. And ooh, so looking a very, very shaky here for Zaza. I wonder if their confidence has been hit from that initial run. They did so well in practice. They found their footing, and then to lose it like that in the final few corners, it's got to be a blow to the confidence. So the only injuries in that situation, thanks to it being virtual, the only injuries are talent. Those talent injuries have a profound effect on your final performance. Either way, Zaza's coming down, Conrad straight. Now all he has to do is link up these final few corners in the Chase and Murrays, and he'll be home free. So yellow flags are briefly coming out a few times. Daniel Moffat has gone and set another really strong time, a tough time to beat. 2 minutes 1.145, and I'm not sure if anyone's going to make a meaningful challenge. Certainly not yet. Zaza across the line is only going to be enough for 4th fastest and 3rd in class, as he's going to be 1.7 seconds off the pace compared to Moffat. Moffat, I gotta say, is looking unstoppable right here. He's just come out of the pits again, and of course that 1.145 is a very high bar to clear for any driver, not just for the likes of the Pro Class or even the Pro Ams. Just any driver at all is going to have a very hard time keeping up. Paul Sims across the line does make an improvement, but it's still 1.5 seconds off the next best time, so that is going to be a fairly difficult predicament for some of these drivers to be in. You've got a massive gap that a few of these drivers need to make up. Benjamin Alexei coming across the line here, a little bit wide on the curb, but they are going to be coming home, although with a track limits invalidation. So let's see what they can do. Regazzoni is on a very strong improvement curve. They do have to make a lot of time up, as a Robert Homer makes enough time to go 10th fastest, displaces Regazzoni to 11th. Regazzoni's got a lot of pressure on to respond, and to respond very strongly to that kind of move. Are they going to make it up? Are they going to have enough time? A lot of time being gained on that final corner. Is it going to be enough? It's an improvement, but they're still half a second off Homer's new time, so they are going to remain in P11. You've got Mishin now as well, who is going to be really trying to give it a bit of a push. We're coming up to the cutting now, and noticeably he's not in the 296, so he's in the 488, it looks like. So a very different pick, and one that maybe is raising a couple of eyebrows around the field. Claudio Zaza has made a big improvement, 1.2 seconds behind Moffat, but it's still second fastest and a very good showing for the driver. Oh, Mishin, though, he just lost it briefly there. Let's take a quick another look at that again. You can see he just hangs it to the outside. He keeps it as gripped up as he can and just gets the car a little bit unsettled. Too much curb. Luckily, no damage, but he's going to be taking that car and riding it back home. So you've got Richard Cook now coming across the line. He has got an improvement. Is it going to be enough for a place? According to the Delta, it's looking very good. It is half a second. That's good enough for best in class. 1.767 seconds behind pole, but that is going to be 18 milliseconds ahead of Craig Starkey, who previously held the class best. But here we go, folks. We've got 9 minutes left. Regazzoni is the driver that we need to keep an eye on here, and that 720S, he's looking like an absolute weapon. According to the Delta, he's over a second faster than his best. So where that could end him up, nobody knows. He could put himself as high as 6th or even 5th fastest if he keeps this trend up. Into the chase now. And everyone is keeping a very firm eye on him. He just needs to nail this final corner, and he could put himself right up at the top of this class. There you go, Regazzoni. Across the line, what is it going to be? It is going to be 8th fastest. He's going to be a 10th behind still, but it is going to be a substantial improvement. Adam Rios now, also on a push. Looks like they're having a little bit of a connection moment, because they did seem a little bit erratic out on track, but still, they are doing a fine job of getting themselves into the points paying positions from the quali start. There we are, Forest Elbow now, and let's say jump on board with them as we go down into Conrad, straight down the mountain. And you see it's a 285 kilometers an hour. That is a heck of a speed to hit. That is, for instance, about 180 miles per. It is absolutely a brilliant best of speed that these cars have. So here we go. Coming across the line now, Adam Rios is going to be making an improvement, and it's going to be quite the improvement, and that is 5th fastest and best in class by a sizable margin. So great job there. So looking around the rest of the field, looks like we could have a look at Krasnov, so currently bottom of the pro class. Bottom of the sheets, they do not want to stay. They have made an improvement, however, and quite an improvement it looks like. Let's see what they can do. Round the last corner, and that is going to be 2nd fastest, less than a second. They've broken the second gap, 857 milliseconds, and that is going to put them 2nd fastest. But yet, crazily enough, nothing can match Moffat's previous time. Not even Moffat. He's running a second behind compared to his previous, so whatever magic he worked, that might have been temporary. So Alexei now, finally, getting another good shot, and they are going to be improving up to 13th, so very good job from them there. You got Zaza also going to be coming through. They are making an improvement, but is it going to be enough to reclaim that 2nd spot, or even make a challenge for 1st? Cross the line here, a little bit of a dust puff, and they are going to improve, but again, not enough. Not enough is the theme here. All these drivers are improving and improving hard. But in some cases, they're just not having the level of push that they need. So just take a quick second as we come to the final 5 minutes of the quali here. Here is your current times as they stand, folks. And here is where they sit. So Zaza with the best record for Sector 3, but Moffat absolutely dominating the 1st and 2nd sectors. And this is where, as we see, in the background, Ryan Anderson getting very out of sorts. But there we go. So 1.145 is the time to beat. And you can see in the background, we jump back on board with Priadko, as they have made quite an improvement and look to be on very good form. The number 1 car, very rare to see the number being put on display. But I guess they had that champion level pace. Let's see here. Final couple of corners. They can nail this exit. They can put themselves in a very good spot. Make a couple of positions. Put them higher in the class. And now we see Priadko jumps up to 11th fastest and is going to hop across into what is nearly the single digits. Not quite yet, but they nearly have got it. Few invalidations across the board, so we're seeing a lot of people get invalidations either on the final sector or on the on the S's. Just a little bit too much coming across in some cases. But here we go, Richard Cook now. He is going to get an improvement, and he's going to be putting himself in, say, 1337. Nice. And second in class. As we have the final few minutes, this is the last chance for drivers to make meaningful pushes to their laps. I think we just saw Regazzoni come across the line there. A healthy improvement puts him up to P7. A few more drivers to watch. Krasnov is on good time here. Looking like they're on very good time, in fact. So down into the chase. They need to just carry the flow of that car. Keep the speed. Keep it balanced. We might yet see those times come down being further. Across the line now. And that is an improvement. That is a very good time. 201.585 from Krasnov. But let's check in with our current leader. Let's check in with Daniel Moffat. He had a very good first sector. Gained about a 10th on his previous, so I think the theoretical here might even be a 2-minute flat. But it's just whatever happened through the Skyline and through the S's. Seems to have lost Moffat a fairly sizable amount of time. Let's see how he's taking the car, fighting it a little bit. Very smooth inputs. Really just letting the car ride through the corners. And you can see, oh, massive time gain on the final corner. And there you go. That is going to be just on the cusp of a 2-minute flat. 201.037. That is the new fastest. And a pole by over half a second in this session is nothing to scoff at. Richard Cook now going to be coming through the final corner and is going to be seeing if they can get an improvement. Yes, they do. Second in class. And that is going to be putting the nets P2 and 6th on track. Brian Anderson now coming down through Forrest's Elbow. One of the hardest corners, I think, alongside the Dipper, for just how it curves down and also to the left. It's very difficult to balance the grip and predict sometimes where the car is going to land itself. They are looking very good here. But we have a final minute in quali. 1 minute left, so drivers who are yet to set their times, or at least yet to get themselves properly on track, well, they've got their work cut out for them. So we've got Brian Anderson here, probably his last meaningful attempt, but he is probably going to keep going, as is going to be a heck of an attempt at that, and that's going to put him 4th fastest with a really good run there. Is anyone else going to be going for it? Doesn't look like any of our top 3 are going to be pushing. The top 3 is looking to be fairly stable, and like there's not going to be any movement on that front. Paul Sims is currently on a lap and is going to be giving it all he can to make a push. But can he improve? All it needs is a 10th and a half. And he's going to be in a very good place. Currently P5 in his class and overall, but a very good last sector is going to put him up into fourth fastest. Is there going to be any meaningful response from some of the other drivers? You've got Starkey, who has sort of parked out. He's made a little bit of a whoopsie in the second sector. Benjamin Alexei, one of the drivers we've been jumping on board a lot with here in this quali session, but they've just been showing consistent incremental improvement, and that is exactly what matters at this point in time. We have a few more drivers still on track. We have Rigazzoni, who's going to finish a lap soon. We have Alexei, who is also pushing. Brian Anderson is trying to also see if they can get their time back. We'll jump on board with them in a short minute. But here we go. So Priadko about to finish. Are they going to get an improvement? There is not going to be an improvement there. They're going to remain 11th fastest out on the field. Alexei now. Final corner. As you can see, Regazzoni is going to make an improvement, but it's infinitesimally small, and that's going to result in no movement out on track. So eyes on Brian Anderson. And he's going to be heading into the pits. And that is your final quali order, folks. That is it. And that is your standing. So Daniel Moffat leads in the race with a great pole position. And with Sergei Krasnov coming in second to round off the second row. Or to round off the first row. Looking like a very strong showing. Again, Moffat really putting out the feelers, putting out the heat, and just showing that they have a level of dominance in this series that many drivers are struggling to match. They really are struggling to match. So we'll be right back with you, folks. We're just going to take a short intermission as we get ready for the race here. Alright, folks, and we are back. Thank you for your patience. We're about to get back in. We're about to get ourselves into the race itself. 90 minutes, remember, early morning start and a full mandatory pit stop with fuel and tyres. But let's waste no more time. Let's get ourselves back in. And let's get ourselves into the action. Let's see what we're up against here. So, 50 seconds, and drivers are going to be getting themselves ready for the race. So that's making sure their setups are all locked in, all in order. And drivers are going to be having their wits about them for sure. As I can completely understand, there is going to be a little bit of, not chaos, but we will certainly see some antics, as this track does not take any liberties. We have 20 seconds to live start. Looking fairly split in terms of classes. Usually we don't see as clean cut as we do, but with a couple of exceptions, it's looking like all the classes are fairly grouped tightly. So Pro class is completely uninterrupted. Pro-Am is uninterrupted with the exception of Robert Homer and Roger Everett. And we're about to get away, and there's Robert Everett, my mistake there. But yes, here we go. Eyes are tightly locked on the front of this field as we have a very interesting 90-minute race ahead of us now. And of course, Moffat leads with an absolute corker of a quali lap. Not enough to make the full 2-minute flat, unfortunately, but a 201.037 or 030 is absolutely nothing to scoff at. That is an insane time. So at this point, track is 20 degrees. It's looking fairly clear and sunny on the radar. And nobody is going to be left wanting. Yeah, everyone's going to be trying to get some heat into their tyres as fast as possible, really. As we've got ourselves a very quick jump that we're going to be seeing. As soon as things get going, as soon as we are at full race pace, and drivers are going to be, of course, getting double file for the start, all bets are off. Everyone is going to be flying to try and get those early positions. If you can nail the start of your race, you are set up firmly for at least the next hour of running. Now, of course, driving standards are tightly enforced. We do have a dedicated stewarding team that oversees these races. And we, of course, have the live stewarding team on hand to ensure that any accidents are dealt with fairly and dealt with honestly. Here we are now, coming down the Conrod Straight as the race is about to get started. See Moffat yielding in order to get ourselves into proper 2x2 race formation. You see there's Krasnov edging closer. He's going to be getting up alongside very shortly. Noticeably, not very many drivers are actually weaving and working the tyres in order to get them up to operating temperature. But with 90 minutes to go, I'm not surprised if they're just trying to extend and expand that tyre life as much as they can. Here we go. Noah's Ark 2x2. A little bit of dirt and dust getting kicked up for good measure. Everyone is gearing themselves up to get into race formation. You can see all the drivers now ready to go. So we're looking on for Paul Sims for now because he's going to have a great view either side. And as we round the final corner, this is the Lightspeed Racing Twilight Cup Season 2, round 6 of 7, the penultimate round. Let's do this. The green flag is about to fall any second, and there you go. That is the green light, and that is the signal that we're about to go racing. Immediately, Paul Sims, he's going to be putting it tight to the inside. He's going to try and get that left, and a little bit of an overextension, and is going to result in him going into the grass. Zalzar is looking for a way to lock in that third place as quickly as they can. A little bit of a movement on the back as you get a three-wide battle. That's going to be Regazzoni. That's going to be Peyton. That's going to be Starkey, potentially peeking for a move, but he's not going to be committing to one. He's playing it much safer. You also see up ahead, you've got Adam Rios, who is fighting tooth and nail with Richard Cook to try and get a move. No one goes too wide into the cutting, and that is a big snap coming out. A big snap coming out from, that was, I believe, yeah, that was Adam Rios. That was him losing the control of the car there. So he's going to have a very difficult road ahead. Starkey's kind of got caught in the middle of it all. He's down in P10 right now. He tried to make a move earlier on Peyton and Regazzoni, but he couldn't do it safely. So he opted to yield. He opted to back off and play it a little safe. And you've got a bit of a gap forming between the top three and the rest of the field right now, because Paul Sims has lost by about a second, as you can see on the tower. A few more drivers to keep an eye on. But the mid-pack is where things could get very, very interesting. So jumping up to the front, you can see, yeah, that gap has grown substantially. Paul Sims now about 4/10 over a second behind. And that gap is growing fast. Moffat has done an amazing job of getting a really good start, keeping their nose clean, and Zaza is just trying to catch up to Krasnov, because there is going to be a heck of a fight brewing between these two as the race progresses. You see further back, there's going to be almost a move from Starkey, nearly goes back to the Peyton, but it's not going to be anything of consequence arising from that. And you can see, say, Alexei has dropped down in a big way. I wonder if they left the track, because it looks like they might have had a little bit of a squabble, a little bit of an issue. But yeah, Everett is really seeming to struggle. He's just gone onto the inside and seemingly dropped that position for free. Zaza now is going to be chasing down Krasnov and getting very, very close indeed. I say only two very small contact incidents, no major incidents on the first lap, which is always good to see. I think we had to say minor contact, nothing too substantial, but of course we have the live stewards who do an amazing job at keeping our tracks and our races clean. But eyes on the top, and eyes on Brian Anderson, because he's chasing down and could make a move for P4. But he's got to do it fast. If he doesn't do it fairly soon, I'm pretty sure that Rios is going to make his move. He's going to decide that, hey, enough is enough now. I want that position. So Anderson's got to play his cards very carefully here. Of course, doesn't want to overdrive the car. But he does need to keep the pace and keep a good amount of proximity. I just wonder how consistent the top runners can really keep it. Because now, eyes are firmly on these top five. But who can make a bit of a gap in these early stages? Benjamin Alexei is going to be going for a little bit of a move on Everett here. So Everett managed to get back past the Porsche, and they're going to be having a drag race. We come through to the chase. That is contact, and that is a big incident between the two. They've piled into the wall. That's the yellows out immediately. And Everett, along with Alexei, are going to be limping their cars back. That was absolutely brutal. You see there, we get the action replay. Unfortunately, he gets collected by the Ferrari once again after losing control. They had a little bit of a tap on the side, and that is all that it took. But now you look at the back and you look and see Craig Starkey is going to be looking for an opportunity on once again. It's going to be James Payton. So you've got a few other drivers who are looking to get themselves in edgeways. You can see he's even poking his nose out a little bit, just trying to get himself a good position, a good shot. Even just coming out of Solomon Park. Good shot here. Could give him the move for before the Skyline and S's section. But he has to play his cards right. He's also contending with a bit of dirty air. The track is slowly warming up as we get to the day good and proper. And oh, who is that off? That is Regazzoni. He had a massive off there. I think he just went very wide. Yeah, I think he went rather wide there. And just didn't give himself enough space. So now he has been brought right back into the fold and into a little bit of a three-way fight, which is soon going to be joined also by Priadko. Jesse, Everett and Alexei are both in the pits, having to stand by and repair damage. That is not going to be a happy little camper in that pit lane here. We're going to hop aboard with James Payton and get his perspective on things, because he's got a very difficult battle ahead of him. He's essentially caught between a rock and a fast place, because he's got ahead of him, he's got Regazzoni, who has 5 seconds clear of the next competitor, and Richard Cook further up the road. But also behind him, he's got Craig Starkey, who has put on about 3 or 4 laps by this point of pressure, which is really going to weigh on your mental. As a driver, it is so difficult to keep that composure and keep your wits about you. Eventually, even the most patient of drivers do succumb to that pressure and to that constant pushing. Your moves get a little bit more aggressive, your driving gets a little bit more desperate, and eventually someone yields or makes a mistake. It's just about being patient and being the one who is able to handle that pressure the best. Rios is going to be the one to look at, though, as well, as Richard Cook is putting on a substantial amount of pressure. And with that very striking AMG livery, of course, they kept it consistent, they kept it the same, and we know him well for that shade of blue. Although, given the fact that he's net P2 in the class, and right behind his main rival to the top step, I think blue is anything but how he's feeling. Yeah, just slowly putting that pressure on. And this is where you get into the long game now. I know we're not even 10 minutes in, but it's already worth considering that these drivers are, of course, thinking from a speed and driving point of view, but a strategic point of view more importantly. It's all well and good you can get these short, sharp moves, but if you've overdriven the car, if you've maybe burnt a little bit too much of your tyres, then that is just going to serve to bite you back, especially when you have a mandatory fuel and tyre stop. Not managing, let's say, your fuel correctly and not being more efficient with your fuel can cost you vital seconds in the pit stop window. So your resource, fuel, tyres, even things like managing and ensuring that your car doesn't get too damaged, it's all so important. You can see Craig Starkey here. He's decided that now is the time he's going to make his move, and he's going to be pulling to the right side of that Audi. Starkey has got a heck of a chip on his shoulder by this point, because he's just pushing, and he's always wanted that position, I think, since the start of the race, and it just hasn't happened yet. So that's what we're saying about that desperation, about that pressure piling on. Something's got to give. And Starkey, from the way he's driving, the body language of the car, so to speak, is communicating a very, very clear story. So your current timings, folks, are, as you can see on the screen, Regazzoni 6.6 seconds, and in P8 they are going to be the sort of main segment to what we call the second pack. Of of course, got a few drivers behind Everett and Alexei after they had to take themselves into the pits following that collision. Everett is also being handed 5 seconds for their incident with Alexei too. So that is a certainly difficult prospect for Everett to come back from. And we have seen cars just camp out in the pit lane, unfortunately. Let's see, it looks like, ooh, that is Everett, as he's going extremely slow. And short shifting the car, basically. That cannot be safe driving. They are going very slow on track. They are off the racing line, but they are also proving to be a little bit of a on-track hazard. I wonder if they're going to pull back into the pits and retire. So yeah, we're back onto a familiar face. That is going to be Starkey. Keep in mind, these drivers are fighting for P4 in their respective class. They may be P9 and P10, but if you have a white number, then you are in Pro. If you have a grey number, you're in Pro-Am, and if you are in a red number, you are in Amateur. So just keep in mind, when I say net P4, net P2, that is what we're referring to. We're 5 laps in now. Moffat leads by 2 seconds. Krasnov has tried his best, but to no avail, and Zaza has dropped off significantly. So our top 5 drivers are all separated each by about 2 seconds. Closest major fight is, in fact, right here, with the Adidad looking 296 and the very stealthy Audi R8. So let's see what these drivers can make of the situation. Starkey has lost a good chunk of time to his opponent. Seems to be making it back through the dipper though. We're noticing that some of these cars have natural strengths and weaknesses. Starkey is having to brake a little bit more, but you see, he bumps the rear wheel. Peyton is going to lose a fairly large chunk of time. They're going to fall away for more than a second to Regazzoni. As you can see, the timing gates are coming through there. Starkey just about 3/10 behind. And the pit window, crucially, is open. So 10 minutes after the start of the race, the pit window opens, so any time between now and the final 10 minutes, drivers can get their stops in. But here we go, this looks like Starkey might be making his move now, coming in, and he's going to have the inside line. That is going to be Starkey up into P9. And net P4 of the Pro-Am class. The question, though, is can he keep it? Yeah, that's the question certainly on my mind, because Peyton doesn't look to be giving up the ghost. Not yet, anyway. He wants to keep about half a second of proximity. And that might be easier said than done. Jumping a bit further up. Another battle that we've been seeing rage for a few laps now is the one between Rios and Cook. Now, Cook hasn't really made as much of a substantial impact as, say, Starkey had on Peyton, but they are still keeping within a second consistently. And Rios, even by nature of fighting with Cook, has caught up to Brian Anderson. So these two top Pro-Am runners are about to trade blows with the pros as we come down for the 7th lap. Let's check on board with Rios, and let's see how he's doing. Because, of course, he has Cook behind, but he's got another very lucrative target just ahead. Of course, they say these drivers, they use the low fuel motorsport, the LFM framework, in terms of determining classes based on placement and overall times. So if you can get yourself into the fight with pro drivers, then that is a serious stamp of respect. And the same can also go for amateurs against pro-ams. You've got Hopkins down in P12, but is ahead of his next competitor in class by about 15 seconds, which is a not insubstantial margin. But yeah, Bruce Hopkins really taking the fight to the Pro-Ams, because they are nestled firmly in the brawl with the grey numbered drivers. Starkey, though, seems to be on good form and good momentum, because we're going to see a three-way battle for P8 at this rate. So P6 and P5 are looking fairly static, but you can see how close these three drivers are. Starkey made a little bit of an inward peak. Very wide going there from Regazzoni, and that is a massive spin coming from Regazzoni there. Starkey has made serious contact. Let's take a look at that again, and let's see let's just see what happened there. So, of course, you've got... Oh, bugging the cam, and say you just see him bumping the wall, getting collected, and then having to see drivers yield from the racing line. That is a brutal, brutal happenstance. And that is going to see Regazzoni drop all the way down to P12. I wonder if there's going to be any stewarding coming off of that. You see a massive brawl coming in with the rest of the field. Starkey, I imagine, is harboring some serious damage, and they're going to have to nurse that car into the pits before long. But everyone has sort of bunched up behind the blue Ferrari, even showing a bit of a concertina effect as you nearly see Hopkins go right into the back of Priadko. Or I say that's Priadko back into the back of Peyton, my mistake. But Priadko is, though, going to press their advantage. And I think they're looking for a move, and they are going to get the move, the double move, in fact, on both Starkey and Peyton. So very good driving there from Priadko. Rios and Cook have swapped places as well in amidst all of that. Good gee willikers. I do say this race has certainly spiced up very, very quickly. You can see Starkey is going to be jumping into the pits now. Has no real choice because he did get substantial damage from that incident. And Bruce Hopkins has made quite the jump, with Robert Homer also heading into the pit lane. I imagine drivers are also going to be using this time to get their pit stops in and say, well, they've got damage, they might as well get their mandatory swaps in, even if it is going to potentially mess with some of their drive strategy. I think that is the crucial element here. Make the best of the bad situation. As we jump up to the top, you can see Claudio Zaza has done a good job in making time up to Krasnov. They got about 6/10 on the Porsche ahead. They get very close at points, but they drop away pretty soon after. Seems to be right in the middle. So that half a second is proving to be the toughest hurdle for this Ferrari right here. They're going to get a little bit of a slipstream, I think. They could even be moving to get a place on them, coming through into the chase, but they are going to play safe, which I think is the right call there. They weren't close enough to go for a move there. Any movement coming from Zaza here? Doesn't look like it. Homer has finished their stop and is coming out of the pit lane. Starkey is also finishing their stop here, so they are going to be taking their car, fully repaired, mind, back into the heat of battle. Coming out in P16, they've got a lot of work to do. See Zaza, he just tries to peek at least half of his car out, and that way he can ensure that he's not fully affected and disturbed by the dirty air. And that really is the fine balancing act at play with these drivers. They're going to have dirty air to contend with, and this... So Regazzoni had a little bit of an incident, it looks like. Let's check back on the replay. And, oh yes, so they lost their car coming out of the first corner. Yeah, say hell corner. Aptly named, it seems like, in Regazzoni's case. And now they, of course, are going to be losing even more time. They're down in P11. Paul Sims is another driver that I want to keep an eye on because they've been patiently chugging along, patiently working away to keep proximity. They're a driver that we've seen has enormous pace in short bursts, or when they really need it to catch up, but otherwise hasn't always been able to keep it toe-to-toe with some of the best of them. The real difficulty here for Paul Sims is knowing that the two ahead are going to be battling. Where does that leave him? He can, of course, gain time, but he might not be able to keep the position with how hard these two up ahead are going at it, and certainly not if they're fighting, making up time to Daniel Moffat, who is really just, as we see him come across the line for the 10th lap now, he really just seems to be in his own bubble. He doesn't seem like anything is a credible threat to him right now, and that's most likely true. That is most likely the case. You see a couple of drivers in the background, maybe duking it out a little bit. You see Adam Rios is going to be keeping the proximity to Richard Cook. He doesn't want to lose that position. Not yet. I don't think anyone wants to lose that kind of position, especially given they are the top of their class. So this might as well be the fight for pole and the fight for the race win to these guys. That's the level of perspective that we've got to consider. The eyes on the top three. And Zaza seems to have dropped in terms of pace fairly substantially. Either that, or Krasnov's kicked it up a gear. Zaza's over, say, 1.2 seconds. A not insignificant gap. It's looking like a hard-fought battle. We jump down and we see Starkey has started to make some moves. He's gone on a bit of a recovery effort. Going to be getting pretty cleanly around Robert Homer. Of course, his other compatriot who took to the pits at the same time. He's going to get round. And it could be the start of something here. And oh, that is Bruce Hopkins out on the track. And he's facing backwards. He's facing backwards. Let's see what happened here. So we can see Bruce Hopkins. Yeah, and he just loses the car. He just starts sliding as we come through the dipper. And crucially, he starts driving backwards, but it is to get out of the way of the racing line, which I think is a good move there from Hopkins in terms of keeping himself out of trouble. Dismukes has inherited a position from him. See, around the field, Regazzoni, and oh, Regazzoni is out now. What's just happened here? It seems like everyone has simultaneously just lost the grip of the car. Let's see what happened with Regazzoni here. So coming out of the Conrad Straight just takes a little bit too much curb, and coming down to the chase, he's just sliding across the grass. He doesn't really have any opportunity to catch it. He just has to plant the bumper firmly on the wall side and just hope for the best. So that leaves him in a very tough spot. And to think he was making some good headway. Bruce Hopkins into the pits now, of course suffering damage from that shunt into the wall. And that is, oh my god, that is Krasnov now. Krasnov has dropped and lost his spot. And what happened there? So he just lost it coming out of Philimy Park, heading down into the skyline. He just lost the car into the gravel trap, and that of course put him all the way down in P5. So really not looking good for some of these runners. So Hopkins down in pits. He's going to be losing a very large chunk of time. Although he could get his stop in now, like others have done. So let's see what these other drivers have in store for us here tonight, as things have kicked off massively. And oh, what's Adam Rios just doesn't turn. I'm not sure what's happening, but these last few laps have proven to be some of the most problematic with these drivers that I have seen in this season thus far. Rios with a massive level of understeer just piles it into the tyre barrier, and I'm not sure if he suffered any real damage. We'll have to check the TV cams. No, it looks like his bumper is okay. So it doesn't seem to have picked up any damage, and Regazzoni is once again off the track. So what has happened here is, again, down into Conrad through the chase. He seems to really struggle with these corners. You can see now, massive understeer, spins it, and turn 22 is going to see him really, really struggle. You're down now into P11 as Scott Cameron has inherited a place, and he's going to be up into P10. Priadko is also looking like they are hungry for positions. James Payton is their target of choice. Of course, they got the double overtake on them and Starkey earlier, but the times have changed, and the situation is different now. The game has changed. You know the rules, and so do I. And a few more drivers seem to be having a bit of trouble. So Adam Rios just had a little bit of an incident there, and oh yes, they looking like they lost it big time. So that was down through the dipper, and they did get out the way of the racing line, so good on you there. Radko is continuing to push. Regazzoni has lost time. Even say losing down now to P12 in a minute. We'll see the timing boards update. Yeah, Priadko's looking for that move, and they are very, very hungry for it. You can hear just the difference in the engines. It's beautiful sounding. A little bit of a sound tech nerd coming in, but absolute sucker for the sounds on this game. The game sounds amazing, and Priadko is looking to make it a heck of an overtake. He goes very wide, however, he does lose that exit speed, and that is going to mean that James Payton does take that one corner further. Priadko could be getting the switch back. No, very tight between the two of them coming through Hell's Corner. And Priadko remains committed. He's so committed to this move. He is not letting it yield through two corners now. Is he going to secure it into Quarry Bend? He's still got the nose in. That could be it, and it's going to be Priadko taking the spot. Payton preemptively braking, making sure they don't get into trouble, because we've seen time and time again that you do not want to be going too wide through Quarry, and especially into the cutting as we come up the mountain now. As I said, looks like a couple of yellows coming out for a couple of drivers. Let's see, Richard Cook apparently had a little bit of an incident here. Oh, big slide, but good catch. Very good catch. Oh, not quite though. Spoke a little bit too soon. He did make impact with Craig Starkey there. Regazzoni now into the pits. Yeah, a little bit too soon spoken, unfortunately. Let's see Richard Cook losing again a lot of time. Not an uncommon theme in this race, it seems. Everyone is suffering from some kind of damage, some kind of understeer. Seems to be creeping into these drivers' styles more and more as the race has gone on. Well, we're getting to the first third, so the first leg of this race. We are half an hour in, and as things currently stand, Daniel Moffat is running up ahead of the field and is running uncontested. So he is going to be currently holding the fastest race lap with a 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and 007 seconds. Oh, milliseconds. Nice. And then Claudio Zaza is 7 seconds behind in P2. Paul Sims behind that. Brian Anderson with Sergei Krasnov rounding out the pro class. So again, all of the pro runners are condensed into a single bubble. Then you've got Richard Cook, you've got Andrew Pradko, and you've got James Payton here. We did see a little bit of an incident, I think it was with Scott Cameron. Let's just check in and see what's happened there. Not sure what's happened with them. It does seem to me like a few drivers are just, yeah, struggling with these cars. So, looks like Scott Cameron was fine, actually. So that is my mistake there. It was, in fact, Mishin. So let's see what happened with them. It looks like we've got a quick lock-in. And, oh, very close to the wall. And I think, just like so many of these drivers... Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the replay camera. That is my mistake, folks. Having a little bit of a technical hiccup there. Mishin just seems to be having trouble with controlling the car. They're teetering on the edge of the pits, and they are going to commit and go in for their stop. So, apologies for the couple of camera issues we've been experiencing in this race so far. So our first leg of the race is completed. Your timings are on screen, and your positions are clear. So leading classes, Daniel Moffat leads for Pro, Richard Cook leads for Pro-Am, and Scott Cameron leads for the Amateur class, with the Pro-Ams very much dispersed in between the red numbers. James Payton has started to close the gap once again to Pradko. So Pradko has got quite a lot of work to do if they want to catch up to Richard Cook here. I think the key issue at hand is that Pradko hasn't really got much of a springboard to launch any moves or up any pace, because they've just simply got too large of a gap ahead of them between themselves and Cook to make a good difference. They've got, of course, back markers in between as well, so that is going to cause even more stress and issue. But let's see what they do. Let's see what happens. Only major fight out on track right now. Let's see. Let's give a little bit of a... autopilot. Let's see here. What the fight between Andrew Pradko and James Payton can yield for us. As now the teeth are fully bared between these two. Payton, he's suffered a few losses. Maybe got caught up in a couple of incidents that weren't his fault. And as much as I can make a joke about car insurance right now, I think he's going to need more than that. Because these two drivers have got a little bit of a score to settle. With the timer into the second leg of the race. Payton is struggling for pace, but is going to keep Pradko honest and keep them on their best behavior. Brian Anderson, however, is going to be starting the hunt onto Paul Sims. So they've definitely got the pace there. They've closed the gap to within a second of that Lamborghini. And they are going to be looking to take someone to task. As I think they've had enough of Paul Sims, just say silently, strongly, wielding and yielding. Because they've promoted themselves up into P3. And that was thanks to Krasnov's incident. Brian Anderson has been at the back of the pro queue until that point. And I think he wants to push a little bit harder and really take the challenge up to Paul Sims. So, of course, see how it goes. The track has evolved to optimum conditions, so drivers can expect to push a little bit more on those tyres. But they've also got the life of the tyres because they could wear out a little bit faster if you really grip them up to their limit. So I think we might see drivers even staying conservative in terms of their style in order to get a few extra crucial laps out of them, which could really help their pit strategy. Maybe going for a late run. So we'll, of course, keep an eye in the wings as Anderson has, in fact, lost a little bit of time. We'll keep an eye. We'll be waiting in the wings in order to discern what is really going on. So let's see if we can have any more drivers make a push. Of course, we are going to come into that window very soon of where drivers are going to swap compound, or let's say at least swap sets of tyres, because you've got just the dry or the wet. There's not really compound variations like you would see in other motorsports. You've got the dry, you've got the wet, and you've got more dries and more wets. Those are your choices. Take them or leave them. But now, with Anderson firmly locking their sights on, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this fight continue all the way until the drivers decide to pit. Because it hasn't really got anything to lose. He's got himself in a position where Krasnov is quite a large gap behind. Doesn't look to be a credible threat. And more importantly, he has the room to breathe. And that is, yeah, that is Everett, who lost the car there and is in fact going to be taking the escape road to get out of the way of other cars. Let's just see again what happened there. They just took massive understeer and just came bowing out of McPhillamy Park down into Skyline. Yeah, just take the escape road there, making sure they stay out of trouble with any of these other cars. Because last thing you want to do is impact on a race that isn't yours. Interestingly enough, Alexei has yet to fully satisfy their stop, even though they came into the pits earlier. So maybe they just came in to repair damage, but didn't consider going in. Maybe it was a little bit too early for them to do fuel and tyres. Either that or that maybe could be a little bit of a blunder from their part. Brian Anderson now extremely close to Paul Sims. And really looking to get that move done. I don't think they've got much patience left as they're now within half a second to that Lamborghini. And they're going to be looking to take some names extremely soon. So who needs tyres anyway? Let's just push. Run on the rims. I'm sure you'll generate a heck of a fireworks show if you want to go on that route. Here we are, coming into the cutting. Up to Griffins. More than anything, we're just seeing these two keep each other honest. Keep each other on the hunt for those crucial tenths that, if nothing else, are going to put them closer and closer to Zaza and Moffat. If they can keep this battle up and keep pushing each other forward, they might stand a chance of closing at least some, if not all, of the gap between themselves and P2. And that could really up the ante for the dynamics of this race. And then meanwhile, you have a couple of silent runners. We have Scott Cameron, who has really played it almost stealthily, because they are in a completely vacuous space of the track. They've got no threats in front of them. They've got no threats behind. And they've got over 26 seconds to the next car, but also 20 to Disbuquet, who is trying to chase them. So Scott Cameron currently leads the amateur class, is really going to be in a soft spot. And oh, what's happened to Priadko? Let's see what's happened here, because Priadko and Peyton were setting up to have a battle, but then as we come down, and oh yeah, just losing it completely and piling into the right side wall at Forest's elbow. See, I think he's got a big damage there. And yeah, you can see that hood flapping in the wind. It's not pinned down anymore. He is going to be losing serious downforce with the Venturi tunnels coming out of the hood there and the radiation system. He's going to be losing a lot of time, a lot of speed, and that is going to be Brian Anderson, first driver to head into the pits of the Pro class. We're going to see, of course, where he comes out. So we'll wait eagerly for that. I think he just decided, rather than continue to fight against Paul Sims, if he can get out early, maybe try and do an alternate strategy, get a little bit of track space, and semi-undercut the competition. They could serve to do themselves very well. The tyre drop-off is nowhere near as aggressive as you would expect with, say, very soft compounds seen in other motorsports like F1. But there is still some value to be had in alternating your pit strategy to the majority of the field. You can get yourself some clean air, you can get yourself some track space, and you can stop battling, which can really up your times and add up to seconds if you've played your cards effectively. Although I'm not sure how much it can be appreciated given that everyone is at least a second away from another car. I think the lowest gap we have on track right now is between Krasnov and Sims, and even then, that is 3.3 seconds. So nobody is really going to get the effect of dirty air. And you can see Paul Sims is in the pits. He's coming in. I think he saw his main rival on the track do just that. And I think he's going to echo largely the same strategy. Let's see, looking at Daniel Moffat here. 9 seconds ahead. Just set the fastest lap of the race at 2:01.795. So he's the only driver to break into that 2:01 barrier here on live race pace. And he's really showing just what he can do here. Unencumbered, unchallenged, and unfazed by any other fighters that have come his way. I wouldn't be surprised if within the next few laps we'll see that gap grow to double digits, as now we've officially crossed the threshold and more than half of the field has gone and taken their pit stops. The mandatory fuel and tyre stop of this race. Very vital element, a required element, or you get disqualified or handed a serious penalty. We've officially hit that threshold now, folks. So it's only the minority who have yet to pit in. Anderson is going to be coming out though, and Anderson is going to be coming out swinging as that undercut has worked in their favour. They got Paul Sims behind them in P7 now as we come up to Quarry. I think they've played that strategy to absolute perfection here, as Sims came out just that little bit slower. He came out right into Anderson's clutches. He's going to be inheriting P6 and net P4 in class. A very good job coming out of that Ferrari. So Paul Sims is going to have quite the task in his race efforts. Let's see what's happened here. Not really sure what's happened. We're on board with Bruce Hopkins. Let's see what's happening. Hey, he's facing backwards on track again. Let's see what happened. So yeah, he just lost it. And yeah, he is roadblocking the track. That is a very dangerous move there coming out of Hopkins. I think he needs to take a look at how to do a safe rejoin, because that could have been, if not for the timing that he chose, a very serious incident that could put an end to the whole race. You don't go side on track, my friend. I don't want to put you on the spot, but that is, as far as racing standards go, it is probably one of the worst moves you can pull in terms of rejoining a race. So here we go, back on the straight and narrow. We've got ourselves a familiar battle, and that familiar battle is going to take itself in the form of Anderson v Sims. You've got Regazzoni just up ahead, who is going to yield to the blue flag. Good driving courtesy there. You see, yeah, Bruce Hopkins coming into the pits after suffering that damage. I think, yeah, just lost it coming into the dipper. And is going to be pitting in for some emergency repairs. As you can see, Robert Everett is going to lose it coming into Forest's elbow. He's going to see themselves in a very, very tight spot. Richard Cook at the moment. So Daniel Moffat has come into the pits, and that means that Claudio Zaza is going to inherit the lead of the race, and he does have an opportunity to really push the boat out as we have crossed the halfway point now. Okay, Richard Cook and James Payton are top two runners here in the amateur class, or the Pro-Am, sorry. And they've done a very good job for themselves because they've spliced themselves right in between the pros, although all the pros underneath them have taken their stops. A great run here. Of course, James Payton is going to be heading into the pits now, and is going to see if he can semi-undercut the competition. And if he can get those tyres and fuel in early, it would suit him well to be in that top spot. We've seen a couple of retirements. Not really sure what's going on there. Let's see a few drivers coming through now. Of course, inheriting positions off for Payton's move, and say Moffat is going to be out of the pits and coming out in P3. It's got a very substantial gap to make up. We've still got 6 drivers who have yet to stop. And I think that is where things get interesting. So where it gets intense is going to be looking at the field, looking at who currently stands, and unfortunately we have seen a retirement because Bruce Hopkins is going to be coming out of the session. He's retired out in the pit lane. So we're not going to be seeing any more racing from them. They're going to be finishing 18th on the timing board with a did not finish classification. And there we go. Looks like our top runners both in the pits now. So the incumbent lead for both the Pro and the Pro-Am classes have decided now is going to be the time to take their mandatory stops. Question is, where are we going to see the other drivers land and end up? We have a very good stint from Zaza here, but it's a Daniel Moffat is going to come through. He's going to re-inherit that crucial lead from his competitors. Are any of the other pro drivers going to capitalize on this? Maybe Zaza has to take a longer stop. Let's see. Zaza is coming out of the pits now, and he is going to be just out ahead of his main rivals. So he's still got about 8 seconds away from Brian Anderson. And Zaza still is looking like a very tough driver to beat for these other players. Richard Cook also coming out of the pits now is going to see themselves coming out just ahead of Scott Cameron in P7, but Scott Cameron is still one of 3 drivers. Only amateur drivers left to take their stops now, ladies and gentlemen. But I think Cameron's seeing if he can maybe get a little bit of an ego push, a little bit of a pride push from overtaking every single Pro-Am driver. And if at least temporarily and not correctly, because of course all the others have taken their stops, I think being ahead of all the Pro-Am and all the other amateur drivers certainly can say a stand for something. But he is going to be the closest car to another on the track right now. I think Regazzoni had made a little bit of a mistake going wide earlier, but other than that, very little to report. Yeah, this is where things currently stand, folks, with 40 minutes to go. Half an hour remains on the pit window. You have got Everett, who is staying in the pits and is not going to be continuing, it looks like. Let's see what's going on, because I'm not sure what's just happened there with Benjamin Alexei. Let's hop on board to the helicam and just see what we had going there. So coming up into the cutting. Of course, they are going to make it through Griffins, through Reed Park. And see, oh, just hit the wall there coming through Reed Park, and is going to be landing side on, which could have been, yeah, say if you're reversing onto the racing line, could have been very iffy there. And then looking around the rest of the food, say you got Roger Dismakes, who's going to be dropping down behind James Payton. Dropping down into P9. I think maybe the grip is starting to fail them a little bit here, because you see a little bit of shakiness coming from their control. They're going to be heading into the pits now, and they're going to be one of the last few to do so. Let's see where they come out in a minute. But for now, Paul Sims has got a couple of seconds they need to make up if they want to reassert their challenge to Brian Anderson, and they're going to take that P3 spot back. Not sure how fiercely he's going to fight, or whether he maybe takes a little bit of a longer game approach. We're coming up to 7 AM here, folks, local time, at Bathurst Mount Panorama. The track is 22 degrees, optimal conditions, and now Alexei is also going to be joining Dismakes in the pits, making Scott Cameron the only driver yet to take their mandatory stop here at Bathurst. And as the drivers do come through now, all eyes are on, of course, the top runners, but also these smaller mid-pack battles, because that is what is going to make a real difference to some of them. We're on 25 laps now. Probably going to get to about 35-40 by the end. And some drivers have made some really good progress. Some upwards, some downwards. Dismakes now at the pits. Alexei still pitting. Everett, yeah, completely out of contention here. I think he's just called it. Called it time, called it quits. Someone who definitely isn't doing that is Sims. Closed down a second within just half to 3/4 of a lap. This is what I mean, folks, when I said that Paul Sims has got that bursty level of pace. This is what I mean. They were 2 seconds behind, and now they're just shy of 1. Let's see if they can keep that pace up and convert that into a podium spot. We'll, of course, keep an eye from the helicam, from the TV cameras. We'll see what it can do. It's crazy to think that we do have this being the penultimate round of the Twilight Season 2 Championship. Gotta say, Zaza, who is currently on the lead, but by a single point. So Daniel Moffat could take the lead of the championship if they get this race in the bag. They've had a brilliant stint of wins. They lost 2 races, they won cleanly. And Zaza had some great early results. But we're seeing now if that could maybe be flipped on its head. There's going to be a little bit of questioning surrounding some of these drivers in terms of where their future lies in the championship. So, of course, as a pro, that is the standings for Claudio Zaza and Daniel Moffat. The fight is going to be between those two. Craig Starkey leads the Pro-Am division, and he's going to be on the defensive. So right now, Richard Cook could stand to take some real good points from him. Yeah, some quite substantial points are going to be up for grabs here in Bathurst. So Paul Sims getting very, very close now. We just sort of kept on board with them for the time being because they are the closest drivers on proximity. But then we've also got Adam Rios, who could be making a bit of a pushback and at least getting some points on their boards to confirm their third place, because James Payton is up ahead and 4 points ahead in the championship. They need to get by them. Or say 4 points behind the championships. They need to get by them if they want to keep their place, more importantly, I should say. Ooh, though it does look like Anderson could be getting backed up. I think that's Dismukes just up ahead. And Scott Cameron is up ahead of the rest of the field to say last driver has finally taken their stop. Gavin Sullivan is currently our amateur leader. Dismukes with the third. But yeah, only 4 amateur drivers still on the track. So that's an important fact to consider. Scott Cameron and Craig Starkey have traded places. And now Starkey is up back into P10. With Cameron now completing their stop. This is where they finally land. And this is the clear idea now of where everyone's standings are in this race. So again, the pro drivers remain clustered. P1 through P5. And now you have Richard Cook leading the Pro-Am division, followed by James Payton, Adam Rios, Andrew Priadko, Craig Starkey, and Robert Homer with Nick Regazzoni all the way down in P14 following some risky, not risky, but certainly some mistake-filled driving. Going to put them down slightly, unfortunately, but hopefully we do see a recovery. I lost a lot of time with a couple of earlier incidents. The question now is, are we going to see drivers be aggressive and push like Krasnov could be? 2 seconds instead of the 4 they were at earlier. Will we see them push? Or will we see them retain stability? Final half an hour coming up on this race here, folks. Time is of the essence. And time is running out for any drivers to make some key moves. Let's take a little bit of a further look around the field. Say Scott Cameron with being our current leader of the amateur division. You've also had a few other drivers who have done a good job. So Dmitry Mishin has had a difficult race, I'd say. They've had a difficult race, but they have kept driving. They have kept committed. An unorthodox choice because they are the only car in terms of the Ferrari that is not the 296. Everyone is running the 296. But Machine says, dare to be different. 488 GT3 Evo. Along with a couple of other drivers who have had some unorthodox choices, like the Lamborghini. So Lamborghini, the only driver on track with that is Paul Sims. You've got the Evo 2, the R8 LMS, being driven by James Payton. And you've got a few other cars that are out on track that have got a little bit of a lower pick rate. All eyes seem to be on the McLarens and the 296 Ferraris in particular. Those seem to be the major targets. Let's see what's happened. Ooh, did we just have an incident from Regazzoni? I saw the yellow flag light up. Let's see if anything just happened with them. And oh, that is nearly a serious incident. So well caught there from Regazzoni off the wall. Very well caught. Managed to keep it clean. But it looks like Michin is not having much better of a time though, as they have just come off of the track. And coming out of the chase, they are going to be losing even more time. So I think it's safe to say that any hopes of catching up to Regazzoni are dashed by this point, sadly. They are well and truly dashed in that regard. Not going to be seeing much upward movement at this point in time. Wonder how hard they're pushing for it. Paul Sims, once again, about a second away from Anderson. Not going to be making much upward movement, but not going to be losing time either. I think that's the crucial thing here. They are remaining stable, they are remaining grounded, and they are not gaining or losing time to either end. In fact, Krasnov, I'd say, is losing more time, if anything, because the gap has grown between themselves and Sims. So a little bit of a big slide coming out there from Robert Homer. Looks like that Porsche seems to struggle with the rear end grip. And that thing is looking a little bit roughed up, at least from my camera. So I wonder if there is an issue at play. A little bit wide there. Coming out of Homer. Yeah, I think he just needs to find his center again. As we come through to the latter stages of this race, the final third. We haven't seen much action, but we have seen some good drivers put in some good work and good racing nonetheless. And it looks like there's a little bit of a dirt cloud coming out from the car ahead. That is Zaza. So Zaza is up ahead. You can see here, just up ahead of Robert Homer. 13.3 seconds away from Daniel Moffat. So he's lapping on average about a second slower than the McLaren currently in the lead. Which I think is quite the gap to be losing. It seems to be, at least looking at these sectors, it seems to be that a lot of the time is being lost in the... Well, it looks to be like it's the first sector. I'm not sure what it is about the first sector and the second sector in particular. So coming up top side, Skyline, S's, Dipper, even Forest Elbow. It seems like Zaza is consistently losing time to that McLaren, and that McLaren has got an ironclad grip on this track that looks very firm and almost unshakable. You can see even with the slightly wider line, it just takes a lot of speed through there. You can see big gain on the delta, at least from my internal. Between the Tails and Zaza in just those few corners. We'll see what they have in store, of course. But let's take a quick jump around the field, as everyone has spread out quite significantly. Adam Rios, we had a couple of issues with them earlier, but they seem to have found their grounding now. P8, slap bang in the middle, and net P3 of Pro-Am. We jump down to Nick Regazzoni, as he is going to be catching up to one of the amateur drivers. That's going to be Dismukes just up ahead. But he's going to be catching up. He's going to be pushing. And I think he's very hungry to try and reclaim some time. Even if it doesn't result in class position, at that point, it's a game of pride. And I don't think he wants to be stuck down in P14 forever. He wants to at least make up or try and rejoin the main group, or at the very least, Robert Homer. Though with 30 seconds between them, I'm not sure how possible that will really be. And in fact, Regazzoni is losing time to Dismukes right now ahead. He is losing time. He was a second, and now it's looking a lot more like 1.5. Let's look up and look at what could be unfolding as Sims has dropped down, leaving Krasnov with a great opportunity. You got the battle for P4 going on here, folks, because Krasnov has kept themselves tight to the back of this main pro driver pack, and now their patience and dedication is being rewarded with an opportunity to take the Lamborghini. Coming down into Forest's elbow here, they could size themselves up for a move. Coming through Conrad in a second. If they get a good exit out here and a good slipstream, this could be game. This could be fair game for the Porsche. They're not quite close enough yet, but you can see that Paul is going to go to the right and then to the left again. He's just trying to break the toe. You can see how powerful it is. They're trying to break the toe. See, Regazzoni, in fact, is going to be heading into the pits once again. Very peculiar, as they've already taken a stop. I wonder if they've sustained some kind of damage, which is forcing them to make this decision. Oh, Krasnov loses the rear, and that is going to be them firmly out of this top fight. They're going to be seeing themselves dropped into a very lonely space. But yeah, Regazzoni, unfortunately, is going to be quitting out in the pit lane here at Bathurst with just 23 minutes to go. Now, lucky, Krasnov, lucky for him, because of the amount of gap that has come out of the pro drivers, they aren't going to be under any credible threat. But Priadko, we'll see what's just happened there. As Priadko say, coming out of McPhillamy Park, heading down into Skyline. Yeah, just lose the rear. Completely shunts it into the wall and down into the S's. They're going to have a very slow recovery drive. And once again, we come straight back to them out of the replay, and they're facing backwards in Forest Elbow, and the drivers had to take almost evasive action. Yeah, they had to take evasive action. That was a very, very close shave. That could have been quite the incident there. Luckily, Priadko's coming out of the way of other cars. They're right way round now. Yeah, not looking like a good lap for Priadko. They might even need to go back to the pits, because that car looks to be a little bit battered. Certainly on the rear. That car is looking a little bit bruised, a little bit beaten, and a lot less stable than it really should be. Question is, with 20 minutes to go, are they going to go into the pits, or are they just going to commit? Because it's very easy to go, so well, I've only got 20 minutes left. The time I lose from a pit stop is more than if I just stick it out with the damaged car. So let's just commit. Let's just keep it focused. Let's just keep ourselves going. You can see from the crooked wing, that car is really going to be a handful to fight. Especially considering the GT3, the AMG, has already got a pretty lively rear end. Already likes to light up the rears on occasion if you don't treat it right. Here we go now. Final 20 minutes of this session. And so far, Daniel Moffat has lost a little bit of time. He was 13 seconds ahead, and now he's going to be down. As I say, it looks like that's Craig Starkey. That's a Craig Starkey with a key mistake. So coming down into Skyline here, I think they just lost the car a little bit. And oh, you can see there down into the S's, too much curb. upset the balance, and they are going to be facing backwards and jumping into the pit straight away rather than risk anything. They're going to be jumping straight into the pits, and that is going to be putting themselves in a very odd position, with them now sort of being locked in that pit position, plus a time loss. And it looks like Alexei is going to be heading into the pits, as they had a little bit of an incident of their own. I wonder what's happened to him there. Just parking up behind Everett, who has remained there steadfast for about 12 laps now. A few more drivers. Going to be in a very, very awkward place. I think Starkey will be coming out of the pit soon, but yeah, so Paul Sims remains focused. You can see Anderson up ahead. Even with a little overextension. You can see Starkey getting dropped down the field hard in order to sort of serve the, I guess, the implied penalty of going into the pit, returning to the pits. Oh, is that a little bit of movement as we see the blue flag coming out? Ryan Anderson is going to get round the back marker, but Sims could get stuck. Sims could get very stuck if they're not careful. You see 2 seconds. Crazily enough, short of Paul Sims, everyone else is separated by 10 seconds or more. So 10.2 is the accurate figure between Zaza and Moffat. 9.6 for Anderson, and growing between themselves and Zaza. Paul Sims has dropped a lot of time because he's been stuck until very much just now behind Priadko. So he is going to be in a very awkward place. And looks like Alexei is finally out of the pits. Starkey is still in there. And is basically second lowest in class confirmed now. As we jump a quick look up ahead, we'll see Zaza just playing it smooth, playing it safe. He doesn't really need to do anything else, because he's got 10 seconds either side. He doesn't need to fight. He doesn't need to. Nobody is posing a credible threat to him. As long as he just remains stable with his driving, there is nothing he needs to worry about. So Dmitry Mishin is going to be inheriting themselves a P13. Starkey has remained in that pit lane and is not going to be returning to the track. It looks like they've called it quits, which is unfortunate to see. But let's see, the camera having a bit of a moment. But we might see a little bit of movement at the bottom of the pack, as Mishin is within 2 seconds of Dismukes now. Oh, but saying that, I just overcooked it at the cutting. And they're going to be cutting into a sizable chunk of that wall. Maybe even sustaining a little bit of damage to their aero surfaces, as things aren't looking the most stable for that Ferrari. We have just 15 minutes left to go, and oh, Mishin into the wall. Very hard impact coming out of McPhillamy. That is probably going to be a pit question there. Because I would certainly wonder if it's worth continuing and fighting a car so hard after an impact like that. Here we go now. $14 minutes. 14 minutes. Alexei could be inheriting themselves a very neat and tidy P14. And just seeing around the rest. Everyone is in their own bubble now. Homer's 4.5 seconds behind Pradko. And Sims is 4 seconds behind Anderson. So there's any strong battles happening right now, short of a couple blue flag moves, like Krasnov just getting around Pradko, coming up into the park corners. And ooh, big snap just behind from Pradko there. That could have got very dicey indeed. Very dicey. Luckily, it does keep it under control. So good on you there, mate. Good on you there. Starkey's been promoted, or demoted down to P15. And that is going to see him firmly alongside Everett as one of 2 retirees to remain in the session. Of course, we did have Hopkins and then Rigazzoni quitting out also. So we've seen a lot of drops, particularly in Pro-Am, in regards to finishing the race, which is unfortunate to see. The timer counts down, and so do I. All Sims doesn't look like he's going to be making that move. Doesn't really look like he's going to be making that viable challenge anytime soon. And Moffat, I'm actually surprised, because Moffat isn't on peak pace anymore. 202.7 was his last, and 202.4 was Zaza's. So Zaza could have an opportunity to get some time in, but it's not going to crack 10 seconds. Optimistic or pessimistic, however you may be, your inclinations in chat, 10 seconds in what will equate to about 6 laps is effectively 1.5 seconds per lap, which is not a time gap you make easily. Anyway, looking down, it looks like Robert Homer could be finally getting his opportunity to size up a move and get a P10 spot against Priadko here. This could be a really good opportunity. And oh, Priadko, big snap! Losing the car, nearly catching Homer off guard. Luckily, he snaps it to the inside of the course, and he's not going to be presenting an on-track hazard, as that is also going to be Richard Cook managing to get around and safely through without incident. So that is a fairly good running there. And oh, what's happened with Machine? What's happened with Machine? Let's see what happened there, as you got the final 10 minutes coming up very close, very sharpish. Oh, big hit on the wall. And that is going to be all it takes for them to get a hefty time loss. And that is going to bring their gap with themselves and Dismocats up to 30 seconds. That's not a gap you want, especially when they were so close just a few laps prior to Dismocats and inheriting what would have been a P12. That could have been a prime opportunity for some overtake. It's a shame it had to go too soon. So our pit window about to close at 7:30 AM local. Track has remained consistent at 22 degrees. We started on 19, started in the early hours of the morning, 3 a.m. for our free practice. And then, of course, progressing through rolling time as the race has gone on. And the pit window is now closed, folks. So that is no more pit stops. Nobody can enter or exit the pit lane now, I believe. And I don't think the two drivers that are in there now really want to. Anyway. No more pit entries. We could have Alexei, though, going for a move on Mishin, as Mishin has not got the move done. Or at least committed. Alexei is a whole lap behind, but still. They did have a little bit of a battle for it. And let's see what's going on here. As oh, there's Richard Cook, who's lost the car, just coming out into McPhillamy. So let's see what's happened here. Down in Skyline. And just lost the rear. He tried to snap and catch it. Luckily, he keeps it out the wall. So, very lucky save there. No wall hit to speak of. So, lives to drive another day. Very good damage control there. And even when you get into an incident, I think that's really what it's all about as well. Having good damage control and ensuring that you limit the impact that an incident has had, either physically, literally, or in terms of wider strategy. You can limit an incident's impact, reduce an incident's impact, or eliminate it entirely if you're that good. It has a profound effect on your final performance, both in terms of mindset and, of course, in terms of results, which is the part that really gets people caring. You can convert that into result, and you're in for a much better time. See a couple of issues coming down further in the field as, say, Mishin getting a very bad line, nearly collects Adam Rios as you come out of Forest Elbow. And that's the thing you got to be careful of on Mount Panorama, is that if you have an incident, it's very easy, as we saw with Regazzoni earlier, to just collect another driver. And Mishin, yeah, really struggling for grip because he's completely gone off, completely missed the chase. And in fact, he's going to be jumping into the pits. I wonder if that's going to be a permanent. But they are going to be heading into the pits regardless of the pit window. But I think that is going to be a retirement there. And Pradko, yeah, really struggling with the car. He's just, yeah, struggling massively here. I have to wonder if there is like an unfixable issue. Maybe some damage they incurred earlier that can't be fixed in the race scenario, but it's just these cars, they are a little bit feisty, a little bit tail happy, but not to the extent that we are seeing. Keep on Pradko. Now, if there's any handling issues, they are made very apparent through the chase. And you see there that understeer is going onto the grass on the exit of turn 21 and 22. The final corner here. Just, yeah, that snappiness, or at least seemingly inconsistent level of rear grip, is I think what's catching him out here. Daniel Moffat with the best to last lap. 202.657, so he's on pace, equal pace now with Zaza. That gap is not going to be moving. And we are coming into the final 5 minutes. I look around the field here and I see drivers having a little bit of a struggle. Yeah, Briadko once again just losing the car. McPhillamy. Yeah, it looks so difficult to control that thing. Did he not head into the pits after he damaged his rear wing? I can't tell. Certainly doesn't look like it. Yeah, it's really not got that rear wing fixed. Needs to get that rear wing fixed. It does look quite crooked. And that is playing havoc with his aerodynamic behaviors. But he has kept it going. And he has got himself net P5 in the class. And for that, respect is absolutely earned. In terms of winning the classes, though, let's take it from the bottom. Because Scott Cameron has been the silent stallion for the amateur class. He was the last to pit, the last to yield in any fights, and right now the first in our amateur section of this race. 43 seconds between themselves and Rios, so I don't think they're going to be pushing for any new positions anytime soon. But 27 seconds between themselves and Homer, 15 more from Priadko, and then another 5 for Dismukes. So that's 27 seconds and counting. Or 47 seconds, I should say, between themselves and the next amateur driver. So it is very safe to say that Scott Cameron is going to be our amateur class winner without a doubt here. Funnily enough, we also haven't seen any real penalties short of the 5 seconds that got given earlier between, I think it was, I believe it was Hopkins. I can't remember now, unfortunately. Frustratingly so. We did see a couple drivers collect each other. And that did see a 5-second penalty being dished out. But short of that, nothing. Next, we look to the amateur class. And unfortunately, say Starkey, who was on very good form last season. Or not last season, last round. Is going to be bowing out alongside Everett in that class, staying in the pits. And Regazzoni as well. But Cook is in a very good place because they have 35 seconds between themselves and James Payton, who is down in P7. So a very good spot to be. Very well safe and buffered place to be as well. As they have got endless amounts of back markers in that time. Same with Scott Cameron, but a very high number of back markers with which to use to best effect. Richard Cook has always been one of those drivers who's just say silent workhorse. They got it done. From hell or high water. But with 1 minute 30 to go. And of course, the final lap about to begin. I think we need to talk properly about Daniel Moffat. He had a break in this season. He had a break in round 4. And in that time, they had a P6 in round 1. They had a win in round 2, a P7 in round 3. They took round 4 off. And then they have won every single race since. Round 5 and round 6 have been perfect results for them. They could not do anything wrong, even if they tried, it seems like. Oh, Bradco, big wobble there. Just keep it out the walls. Managing to keep it together. Good job. Good job there, my friend. But there you go. Say final 30 seconds. Yeah, Daniel Moffat. He's come back since round 4 and he's won every single race since. He's won race 5. He has won the previous one. And now it looks like we are about to see yet another corker of a win because this is going to be a real showstopper. This is going to be Daniel Moffat as we come down now to Forest's Elbow to crown our winner of the race. That is it. And 201.9 of the last lap. Are we going to get a new lap this round? Or are we going to see him just cruise it home with 12 seconds to their name? The rest of the drivers aren't going to be making much headway. Paul Sims could got very close, but Daniel Moffat, congratulations, because you are our winner here at Bathurst for Twilight Season 2. That is across the line. And now we see the rest of the drivers filing through and following suit. Kaio Zaza comes across to hit that finish, make it a P2 for them, a very good result. Brian Anderson, despite the pressure from Paul Sims for a good majority of this race, has kept it clean, kept it on the straight and narrow, and kept that P3 spot for a final solid finish. P3 and P4 for Sims and Anderson. We got a little bit of movement down the back as Dispicas is caught up to Priadko. One more mistake from Priadko could see that movement change. And Scott Cameron is going to come across the line. A few more drivers are going to be coming through here. Dispicas could have an opportunity where Priadko is seriously struggling. So of course Krasnov through. More drivers pitting in. And getting to the end of this race. So Richard Cook is going to cross the line next. But let's see if there can be a last minute overtake from Dismukas here. He could have a good opportunity. Half a second behind. Is there going to be any sends? Richard Cook across the line. Robert Homer across the line. James Payton any minute now to make it P7. Oh, see Robert Homer and say Priadko, Dismukas both coming in here. A few more drivers yet to fully cross. So let's see Adam Rios now finishing up, making it home, and making it a race to remember. James Payton across the line now. Adam Rios and then Benjamin Alexei are going to be it. And there we have it, folks. That is it. That is your race over. And what a race it was. So everyone, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to wrap it up fairly quick because it's gone midnight in my local time zone. And I can't keep doing this because otherwise I will get a noise complaint. But thank you very much for watching. You can of course see your final standings on screen. So Daniel Moffat takes the win for the Pro class. Richard Cook in the Pro-Am. And then Scott Cameron in the final winning spot for the amateur class. You've been an amazing audience in the chat. Thank you for joining us. And of course, join in next time, next week in fact, because that will be the final round at the Nürburgring GP circuit. Take care, folks. You've been amazing. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.